did not have space to value the power of emotional experiences and struggle with vulnerability. She took all of those messages and made herself believe that there was something wrong with her.
It's not that you're too much. It's not that you're needy. It's that you have been surrounded by people who could not accept you, who could not give you what you needed because of their own limitations. Hey everybody, it's Bianca.
And this is Emilia.
Welcome to another episode of Evolve Ventures, where we are helping growth-minded humans evolve by breaking one limiting belief at a time. We hope you enjoyed the last episode, number 209, Motivation Monday, How to Stop Hiding Who You Are. If you heard that episode, you heard me pop off. I hope it got you fired up. For today's episode, 210. Are you needy or have you just been neglected? Ooh, this hits home. And the reason I wanted to do this episode was because I have had way too many clients and way too many people in my life basically express to me that they feel like they're too much. They feel like they ask too much. They feel like they're a burden on other people. They feel as though they, in and of themselves, who they are just too much and they need to go be less. Be less of who they are. Don't ask for what you want. Hide yourself, suppress, whatever. And the through line in the conversation that I have had to really help them all navigate through is that it's not that you're too much. It's not that you're needy. It's that you have been surrounded by people who could not accept you, who could not give you what you needed because of their own limitations. And so they made you smaller so that they didn't have to become more.
And B, really quick on that. How often do we hear people admitting in those moments to what you just said? I can't give you what you need right now. I don't have the capacity to meet you where you're at. People don't say that because their egos can't handle that. Instead, what they say is what?
You're too much. You're being needy. You need to stop asking. Or whatever. So we start developing this belief that we shouldn't ask for what we want. We're not deserving of asking for what we want. We're not deserving of getting what we need. We're not deserving, or we aren't allowed to think what we need to, or say what we need to, or feel what we need to. Even just feeling an emotion. I've had so many clients say, well, I'm too much if I feel what I'm feeling. Other people don't like it. I can't feel what I'm feeling because, it's going to have this massive impact. And it's like, no. You're going to feel what you're feeling, and then you'll be able to really embrace it and acknowledge it and move on. But for someone who can't handle their own emotions, yeah, you having an emotional experience is going to be a lot. But it's because of them. It's not because of you. And that is what I really want to get across in these next few minutes of this episode is someone's inability to give you what you need has nothing to do with you and everything to do with their ability to give it. It's not that you are not deserving of it. It is not that you are asking for too much. It's that they can't give you anything of what you're asking. So they have to make you smaller and shrink you down so they don't have to feel bad about that fact.
Yeah, exactly. There's a client that comes to mind, and she had this whole identity wrapped up in that she was too emotional. And I know there's a lot of people that start to wrap themselves in that identity when they have been around people who do not know or know how to value emotional experiences, and thus have said things to them, to her: you're too emotional, you're too needy in intimate relationships and in family. And when she had heard that growing up, and as she grew up, she learned, I am too needy. I am too emotional. I'm too much for people.
Yeah.
And that was a bad thing. Instead of recognizing her family was emotionally inept, did not have space to value the power of emotional experiences, and struggle with vulnerability. She took all of those messages and made herself believe that there was something wrong with her. And so what that ended up doing, that brought her identity into intimate relationships where her partners were never emotionally available, could never meet her emotional needs. And in coaching her, I helped her recently identify, like, have you ever really considered that an absolute essential for you is to have someone in your intimate relationship be capable of emotionally meeting you and meeting your needs? And I could tell it kind of broke her brain, because that breaks our paradigm, that breaks our narrative of what we might have interpreted or what we might have been told growing up. And I know what that's like, because in many ways, for me, it was very much, you think too much. That was always the statement that was said, instead of the flip side of that person saying that, which was, I don't have the capacity to think that in depth that you do. It's amazing that you're thinking about this from every single perspective. Holy crap, I cannot believe what your mind is capable of. Mine isn't. I don't know how to hang in that with you. I'm overwhelmed, I feel insecure, and I feel incompetent when you go in and say these big words. There was none of that growing up. Instead, the messages I received was, you're too much. You think too much. You should stop thinking about that.
When you're on a journey of self-discovery or self-rediscovery, it's very important to have a support system in place. And that's where a group like Evolve comes in, with their acceptance and advice and different people from different walks of life who can offer different perspectives for you to help you find your self-worth and aid in your journey of wellness. It's important and essential.
And easily, I'm sure you can all identify with some capacity of this, whether it's the emotional, whether it's the too much, whether it's the whole like concept around this. I felt needy whenever I wanted to engage with people on the thought level. Like, what do you think about that? Let's philosophize. That's always something that activated me. I didn't realize that that was an absolute essential to meet my needs in my intimate relationships, in my friendships, with the relationships that are deeply meaningful for me. I need thought. I need deep contemplation, deep conversations, growth conversations. Those are my needs. I've just been neglecting them. And I find that so many of us fall into that pattern. To what you just said, B, has nothing to do with you, has everything to do with the other person. And how we interpret that makes a world's difference for ourselves.
You are not too much. You are not being needy. You've been neglected. The people who you have counted on probably were never there for you, not in the way that you needed them to be. And you are not a bad person, and you are not wrong, and you are not broken for needing more. You're human. You're just asking the wrong people. So if you find yourself experiencing that, and you find yourself really needing to be around the right people, please join Evolve Venture Society. Come to Out of the Mud. Hop on a call with Emilia and I. Like, this is why we do everything that we do, because we've been there.
Mm-hmm.
We made this, like, initially for us because it's what we needed when we were younger. And we know that so many people are struggling in the way that we did. And so we have all of these communities and all of these programs, whether it's coaching or the free calls we do every Saturday, or group coaching, or Evolve Venture Society, or Out of the Mud, all
IG
of these different
Lives.
IG Lives. I forgot about that. IG Lives,
Mm.
all of these things that we do. There is a place where you are going to belong. You just got to make the effort. You just got to try, work through the discomfort, work through the courage. And we want to see you there.
B, in closing, one of the things that I want to add in here, what I've learned to do is whenever I get those statements, so like for our listeners, whenever someone says, let's say, for example, it's this client that where they've gotten the sentiment from someone, they're too needy, they're too much, they're being too emotional. What I've found and what I've personally experienced is we don't stop ourselves and reframe the interpretation of that. As to, like, for example, in real time, when you hear that, instead of accepting that as the truth, say, oh, they can't give me what I need. Oh, I think too much. Oh, what you really mean is that you think too little for the conversation that I want to have. Okay. And accepting that and being okay with where they're at. It's almost like the force field that we talked about in our last episode. Protecting the force field, letting that stuff bounce right off and being like, honestly, this should be bouncing off me instead of pinging me and stabbing me at the heart level. That's something that I've learned how to do, and I've learned how to teach people. And I think that for this episode, that is a huge skill to develop that I think all of our listeners could benefit from. So if this is something that you struggle with, when someone says you're too emotional, or when someone says a judgment in their mind as they see you as XYZ, instead of accepting that, rejecting that, because you know who you are. You know that your needs, whether it be emotional, whether it be thought-provoking, whether it be physical, whatever those needs are, they will neglect you because of where they're at in their development, where they're at in their emotional, spiritual, physical, mental development. It's not a you issue, it's a them issue. And it's an interpretation issue that I think all of us can learn how to reinterpret in a way that helps us not feel less than all the time, you know? So that's just kind of my final takeaway and something that I wanted to make sure that I brought into this episode. So if you're struggling with that, definitely jump on a call with us, because it's one little change that can literally change the entire trajectory of your life and how you see yourself, you know, and how you don't neglect yourself anymore. So with that, my final my final episode suggestion is 144. Oh, I'm sorry, 149. Motivation Monday. I wish I learned this years ago, which kind of goes into that concept a little bit. B, final takeaway and episode suggestion for our listeners.
So that was my final takeaway, what I said.
Okay, my bad.
No, you're good. Episode suggestion number 62, relationships and how they shape you.
So important.
All right, y'all. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for sitting in here with us. And if you enjoyed this episode, or if you've been enjoying the content, please leave us a 5-star review. The more reviews that we get, the more we can help other people going through the same thing. So our intention is purely to help people and to give this message to someone who might need it. So please leave us a review. We would be extremely grateful, and we will talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.